to Tefo History channel. My name is Catharina Magrietha Kruger and I will be telling you the story behind the history of the Flying Dutchman and Bartolomeu Dias sailing around the Cape of Storms. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a cup of coffee and let's start histouring around. Now, before we get to the story of the Flying Dutchman, I firstly want to tell you about Bartolomeu Dias, the Portuguese explorer that sailed around the Cape of Good Hope. Previously, it was named the Cape of Storms. The reason being, there's huge waves and many ships went shipwreck when these waves crushed on the decks of these ships, as well as rocky outcrops that's lining the coastline. So when the ships were passing the Cape of Storms, many of them went shipwreck. Now it's well known that the first Europeans that rounded the Cape or rounded Africa was the Portuguese. They were looking for a trading route departing Portugal, rounding the African continent and a shortcut to India, instead of going through Europe to India, which were apparently a very dangerous route. By 1415, the Portuguese ended up at Cabo Boiador, that is today Western Sahara area. That was already 1,000 miles from Lisbon. They were too afraid to sail further because they heard that the ocean would start boiling when you actually go further down the African continent, and the sun would get so hot that your skin will turn black. But the best thing was, they also thought that there were dragons and monsters that would eat you. When King John II came to throne in Portugal, he was wondering by himself, John, I wonder if we can pass Cabo Boiador. But he was too afraid to do it himself, so he ordered another Portuguese explorer, which name was Diego Cao, to sail further than Cabo Boiador. So by 1482, Diego Cao packed his ships. I think there were 2 ships, and he sailed past Cabo Boiador. And the ocean didn't boil. There were no dragons or monsters eating them, and he just got a nice tan and didn't turn totally black. So he decided, let's sail further. And he sailed further and sailed further until he reached the Congo River's mouth. Now that is in Angola. And he looked at this beautiful piece of land and he named it Montenegro. And today it's called Cabo Santa Maria. Now Diego Cao was also the first explorer who planted a padrao. Now padrao, that is a limestone column with a cross on top of it, and on the one side of the column it bear the coat of arms of Portugal, and on the other side it was left blank for the explorer who founded a place to plant the padrao, and then on the blank side he would carve out his name as well as the date when this padrao was erected. The padrao also served as marking points for future explorers to find the certain points which were founded then by previous explorers. Now Diego Cao then returned all the way to Portugal, and he was waiting and waiting for King John II of Portugal's orders to go further and search for a route around the continent Africa. So by 1484, he got the order, please go and search for the route. So he sailed past his previous padrao that he had planted there in Angola. So then he just sailed more south and south until he reached the area which we know today as Cape Cross in Namibia. That was just a little bit north of the Tropic of Capricorn. By 1487, King George II of Portugal ordered another very experienced explorer, Bartolomeu Dias, to go and search for the route further down south and hopefully then in an eastern direction to India. So Bartolomeu departed Lisbon in Portugal in August in 1487, and by December he reached Cape Cross in Namibia. And by then he knew, oh my word, everything from here on would be a new territory. Luckily he knew there was no monsters, no boiling water, no skin turning black. Bartolomeu Dias sailed very close to the shoreline to try and map it out as far as he went. So he sailed close to the shore, and then history tells us at one point a huge storm came up and blew the ship into the Atlantic away from the shoreline. 13 days after Bartolomeu Dias said, oh my goodness gracious, we don't see land anymore. We don't know where we are. At least we have a compass, and on the compass it says 39 degrees south. I really don't know where we are. So he decided then to head north, because at least he knew that if he's not going to cross, or let's say go to the African continent, he would sail north and he would reach Portugal again, back home. They were running out of fresh food and water, and they really started panicking. So after 3 days of searching for land, finally they spotted land. And they were so happy because they saw that this land ran from west to east instead of north to south. And they knew immediately that they have rounded the African continent. But by this time they hadn't had any fresh water on board, and they were running out of water. So they decided, let's go on land just to find water. They were looking with their binocular, and voila, they spotted water. They named this area Aquara do Sol Bras, which means watering place of St. Blaise. My Portuguese is not really up to scratch. When they went ashore on 3 February 1488, they saw the Khoi, or the Sandquak people. That was the first people who lived here in South Africa, the first inhabitants. They saw them. They were copper-skinned and short people. And the Bushmen, or the Khoi people, thought, oh my goodness gracious, what have we here? So these strange white-looking men got off the ships, and they were coming out of the ocean. Both parties eyeballed each other and didn't know what to expect from each other. So the Portuguese men quickly went and filled their barrels with fresh water. And then when they wanted to return to the ships, the Khoi, or the sand people, start throwing very nervously stones at the Portuguese. One nervous sailor then picked up his gun and he shot a Khoi man. And the Khoi then fled. Now that was the first incident where we didn't understand each other's cultures in this country of South Africa. So immediately the men of Bartolomeu Dias and Bartolomeu left on the ship, and they sailed another 300 miles to the east. Bartolomeu Dias wanted to sail as far as possible until you could see that the African continent was tilting more to the north again. And that is then where he His sailors then told him, please, Bartolomeus, can we go back home? We are running out of fresh food and water. We have no more supplies. Let's go home. So at the Keiskamma river mouth, very close to today East London, that is where Bartolomeu Dias and his men had turned around. This time he then sailed very close to the shoreline so that he could map it out, because they missed out on mapping it when sailing from Portugal and then ending up 39 degrees south when the storm took them away from the African continent. So when they reached Cape Point, he named it Cabo Tormentosa, or the Cape of Storms. And this is then part of our little story, isn't it? Because there at that Cape Point, that is where you would find all these rocky outcrops and this rough waters, especially during a stormy weather. But when John II, the King of Portugal, heard about the name Cabo Tormentosa, the Cape of Storm, he said, no, that's not a good name for this place. We still want other explorers to find a route all the way to India. So let's rather call it Cape of Good Hope, Cabo Bon Esperanza. So that is where the Cape Point got the new name Cape of Good Hope instead of Cape of Storms. So Bartolomeu Dias had 3 padraos on board of his ship to plant on his way and to plant at new points which he had discovered. So the first padrao he had planted at the Keiskamma's mouth, where he turned around to go back to Portugal. The second one he planted at Cabo Bon Esperanza, the Cape of Good Hope. Although this padrao was never found, the third padrao was then planted at which we know today as Luderitz, and it was named Dias Cross. From Luderitz, he then sailed all the way back to Portugal with the good news that he saw that the African continent was tilting once again to the north, and that the next expedition, definitely, they would find a route all the way to India. Unfortunately, Bartolomeu Dias was never chosen then to finish the trip or the route all the way to India. No, a younger explorer was chosen to finish the job. His name was Vasco da Gama. By the year 1500, Bartolomeu Dias was on his way to India, but when he reached the Cape of Storms, Cape of Good Hope, there was a huge storm and his ship went shipwreck, and the Atlantic Ocean became his final resting place. So Bartolomeu Dias never saw India or the route that Vasco da Gama that actually then completed. But still, today, in recent history, there's around about 26 ships that went shipwrecked there at Cape Point. So be very wary when you round the Cape of Storms. Cape of Bon Esperanza. Good Hope? Yeah, right. Now, history lovers, this brings me then to the story of the Flying Dutchman. As all stories or myths or legends, there's always a few versions of the story. Even the captain's name, the Flying Dutchman's name, one was Hendrik van der Decken, one was Willem van der Decken, and then we also had Barend Fokker. Weird. Now I will tell you at least 2 versions of the story of the Flying Dutchman. The first story is that of the Flying Dutchman Willem van der Decken. Willem van der Decken was a very wealthy sailor. He worked for the Dutch East Indian Company, or the VOC. He married Catharina van der Decken, and then they had built them this big house in the Netherlands. Nobody knows exactly why he was so successful. For you see, he actually had his fingers once again in the pie of the VOC, or Dutch East Indian Company. He even turned to piracy. But the company didn't know that. They even awarded him a medal, a golden medal for work well done. So Willem van der Decken was once again on his way around the Cape of Storms, Good Hope, around the Cape, and then all the way to India. But he wanted to set sail on Easter Day. Now, the other sailors that joined him on the ship, they objected. They say it's against company policy and against Christianity to work on that day and to set sail. But Willem van der Decken said if it takes him until Judgment Day, he will sail the seas and the ocean, and he will sail around the Cape of Good Hope, come what may. So on that day, Easter Day, that he set sail, that is the day when his ship was cursed, as well as the house of Van der Decken. It is said when his ship reached the Cape of Storms, it went shipwreck, and that his ship will be sailing as a curse until Judgment Day. Even the house of Catharina van der Decken in Holland went up in flames when this happened. If this is a true story or not, history lovers, I don't know. The second story was also of Mr. van der Decken, but it was Hendrik van der Decken. He was also a sailor, and he sailed all the way from India surrounding the Cape of Good Hope. I nearly said it. When he reached the Cape of Good Hope, suddenly there was a huge storm breaking out, and he was yelling, "If it takes me until doomsday, I will get through the storm. Come on, men, put the sails up, let's go." And the men said, please, let's turn around. Please, let's not go into the storm. And so suddenly there was an angel appearing above their ship. And once again, Hendrik van der Decken then said, "I will go on and sail back home through the storm. Nothing will stop me." And this angel said, "Turn around, Van der Decken. Hendrik van der Decken, turn around." And then what did he do? He drew his pistol and he shot the angel. When Hendrik van der Decken shot the angel, the ship and Van der Decken's fate was sealed. Big waves crashed onto the boat. It swallowed the whole boat, and everybody drowned on that ship. Suddenly, it resurfaced as a blood-red ship. It is said that the Flying Dutchman and the Dutchman ship will sail the oceans forever and ever as a ghostly ship. There are loads of stories of people that already saw the ship, especially in misty weather or in stormy weather, going past the Cape of Storms. Then this ghostly Flying Dutchman ship would appear and try to go closer and grow closer to the other ships, trying to ask them what is the way back home. But if you see the Flying Dutchman's red glowing ship, your fate is sealed. People usually say, if you see the ship glowing in the dark, you will either have or get a deadly disease, or you will end up dead. Now, most of the sightings of the ship was in the 19th and 20th centuries. Even the ship of King George V sailed to Australia, not the Cape of Good Hope, and then suddenly one of the sailors or one of the men on the ship saw this ghostly red ship glowing in the dark, and he reported, "I can see the Flying Dutchman," and he fell from the mast and broke his neck. During the Second World War, a German U-boat also spotted the Flying Dutchman in the Suez Channel. So this ship is really traveling the world at this stage. It was also spotted a few times at the Cape of Storms. Cape of Good Hope. Now, the story of the Flying Dutchman actually inspires a lot of story writers. It even appeared in a German opera of Wagner, the Fliegende Hollander. Then it also appeared in Pirates of the Caribbean and in a children's story, SpongeBob SquarePants. You would also see the Flying Dutchman. Now, history lovers, this was then the story behind the his-tory of the Flying Dutchman and Bartolomeu Dias, the Portuguese explorer, and the Cape of Storms. Oh, the Cape of Good Hope. Yeah, right. You guys, join me next week, Friday, for the story behind the his-tory of people, places, and maybe some animals. Happy histouring around! Oh, you know what? Also, like, share, and please do subscribe to my channel. Ciao!